Okay, good evening, everyone. It's Tuesday. It's great to be back. We took a little pause to get ourselves organized for the Tuesdays with Thomas and on song. And by the way, this is idagolive.com, the place where classical music happens. And I can tell you, if you've been with us from the beginning at the end of March until now, you know that there's a lot happening. We've expanded. My goodness, we've got the streaming platform going. We've now got the Idagio Live, which is both interviews as well as master classes or think tanks or programs about things. Then, of course, the Global Concert Hall, which is taken seriously the world by music happens. And I can tell you, if you've been with us from the beginning at the end of March until now, you know that there's a lot happening. We've expanded. My goodness, I've got an echo in my computer. Can you hear that?
I love that.
Right back, ladies and gentlemen. I've got to kill this.
Interviews as well as master classes.
Why don't you be quiet? Thank you. Sorry about that. If the technical glitch is, I had my because I'm going to go away after I make my introduction here. I promise I'm going to go away, and I left my web browser on it because I want to watch what's going to happen. We've got a great show. What's going to happen now with the Tuesdays with Thomas is that I'm going to partner with various experts on the world of music and especially singing. And tonight it is my unbelievable privilege and pleasure to introduce to you Eugene Rogers, who, if you see the credits on the front page, we're coming from University of Michigan, we're coming from Washington, D.C., Choral Society. I'm going to let you explain all of that. This is one of the most exciting new colleagues for me that the whole Song of America project has come onto, and he has put together a wonderful month of exploration in the name of song and in the name of singing. And that's what it's all about. And that's what Tuesdays are all about. I'm going to bow out. I hand it over to Eugene. Thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this. We're going to have a great time.
Thank you. Thank you, Thomas. You have no clue how happy I am to be a part of the series. Thank you for having me. We're going to hope to do you proud, and we hope to keep up the wonderful legacy you've already begun with Idagio. So thank you.
Oh, how fun. All right, I'm going to back out. Everybody have a great time.
Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Eugene Rogers, and I am Thomas Hampson's guest host for the World Song Series this month. We'll be focusing on movers and shapers in classical music and feature powerful conversations as well as watching performances of composers, performers, conductors, singers, musicians, mostly from the United States who have a global impact. Today, I'm excited to feature the Sphinx Organization. Yes, the Sphinx Organization. You haven't heard of them. We hope to give you a bit of a taste of who they are today. Please, let's learn a little bit about the Sphinx Organization.
The perception that the talent isn't out there within communities of color is so deeply false in classical music.
Wow! Drop the mic. There are millions of kids like this in this country who do not have the resources to become everything that they could be. But fortunately, these programs are doing the job that the bigger society fails to do.
Sphinx's mission is transforming lives through the power of diversity in the arts. And we address the issue of lack of diversity and inclusion through a sense of a pipeline. We have Overture program. We place violins in the hands of young people for the first time.
I definitely believe that the Sphinx Overture program has made a difference in this community.
The Sphinx competition is our flagship program. It's a wholesome approach to musician development that goes beyond the competitive mechanism. Sphinx Connect is the epicenter for artists and leaders in diversity, devoted to the issues of inclusion, leadership, and career advancement. We have Sphinx Symphony, which is a professional, all African American and Latino orchestra. And then we have the Sphinx Virtuosi, which is an ensemble of soloists that performs across the country, everywhere from Carnegie Hall to Harris Theater in Chicago, and really communities beyond.
I think the Sphinx Organization is so incredibly important. It tries to achieve in our society an equilibrium of people who are incredibly talented and motivated to be part of every aspect of our society.
Sphinx has done tremendous work over its first 20 years. And I think that over the next 20 years, Sphinx will truly transform the lives of millions of more people.
And that's exactly our focus today, transforming lives through the power of diversity in the arts. I think all of us sitting here today would agree that the mission of the Sphinx Organization has definitely impacted and transformed each of our lives. We need more diverse voices in classical music all over the world than ever. And today I'm excited to speak about an organization leading the charge in this area and a few of their amazing artists. With me today, we have Mr. Randall Goosby and Ms. Elena Urias, both solo artists and prize winners of the International Sphinx Concerto Competition. And we will also be learning about the new vocal group of the Sphinx Organization, the Exigence Vocal Ensemble. Hello to you both and welcome.
Hi, thank you for having us.
Absolutely. Our first guest that I'd like to speak to today, everyone, is Mr. Randall Goosby. Just a little bit about Randall. Since winning first prize at the annual International Sphinx Concerto Competition in 2010, he was only 13 and the youngest person to ever win. Randall is now 23 and has performed widely throughout the United States, having appeared with Cleveland Orchestra, the New York Philharmonic, the New World Symphony, just to name a few, as well as performed in such venues as the Kennedy Center, Kaufman Center, and Wigmore Hall. He completed both of his degrees at the Juilliard School of Music and is now studying to receive his artist diploma at Juilliard, where he studies with Itzhak Perlman and Miss Catherine Cho. Welcome, Randall.
Thanks so much for having me, Eugene.
Congratulations on all of your success. Man, I have to say, when I look at your bio, I mean, you have been going nonstop the past 10 years. I'd love for you to just give us a few examples of how you feel the Sphinx Organization played a role in launching your career.
Sure, absolutely. Well, I was sort of reinvigorated and inspired again just by that Sphinx video that you just showed. And I mean, Sphinx has really shaped my sort of identity in a way as an artist. I guess, you know, after winning that competition, the junior division in 2010, the following year, as part of the prize that they award the winners of the competition, I had the opportunity to go to you know, different cities and states all over the country and perform. But the most impactful part of that year, aside from the fact that that was my first sort of concert tour, if you want to call it that, was to see how much community engagement and the uplifting of communities is so integral to Sphinx's mission. And, you know, as a 13-year-old, if any of you who are watching haven't seen the pictures of me from that competition when I was 13, I look like I was probably 8 or 9 years old. Like my cheeks were just kind of hanging off the sides of the violin. And so, you know, that was me going into schools, middle schools and high schools, of kids who are my age and older, certainly who didn't look my age. And I remember going into all of these schools and thinking, man, like, what could I possibly have to say that could interest these kids? You know, they're looking at me like I'm a little baby and, you know, they've never seen me before. They don't know what I'm about. So I just went up, you know, and I did what I always do. And I just sort of told my story and gave a little background and played. And to my surprise, after those first few school visits, I would look out into the audience, this sea of kids who before then may not have even ever seen or heard a violin live. And I just saw jaws dropping. You know, and I was like, wow, you know, if I can have this sort of an effect on a you know, on the greater number of young people and students in the country, you know, I would be really, you know, using my art form for a higher purpose.
Yes.
I think Sphinx has really been a huge part in sort of guiding that aspect of my career. And, I'm so thankful to still maintain a relationship with Sphinx. I think we've got some exciting projects coming up the next few months.
Very much.
I'll be talking about that.
And so tell me, so the community engagement, because that's what I also love about the program. You also do a lot of that in New York or abroad or just internationally as well. Talk to me a little bit about the types of community engagement programs you
Absolutely. I mean, every opportunity I can take, I try to take it. I find working with young people and with kids to be the most fulfilling and gratifying sort of line of work that I could sort of go into through music. I am involved with a number of nonprofits here in the city, one of which is Concerts in Motion. And that, although not aimed sort of more directly towards kids, actually they provide in-home house concerts for elderly and otherwise sort of homebound patrons of classical music in the city. So I've had the chance to go into rooms with patients who may not even be responsive and see just how much live music, classical music, can impact people. So Concerts in Motion. I've been involved for the past few years with Opportunity Music Project, which is a nonprofit as well in New York City that provides free instruments, lessons, mentorship, orchestra, tutoring opportunities for children from sort of underrepresented communities throughout the 5 boroughs. And on an international level, I actually have just sort of recently become involved with London Music Masters, an organization that goes into, yes, Elena, I'm sure we'll hear from a little bit about that as well, that basically serves primary school age children in the UK. And brings top quality performers and instructors into these schools to give the kids a taste of what they can do. And especially in these times, these sort of tumultuous times, to say the least, that we're experiencing right now in the U.S. I mean, my sort of drive to go even further in this direction is just skyrocketing. So I again, owe so much thanks and gratitude to Sphinx for sort of opening my eyes to what's possible.
Absolutely. Before we go on, let's watch a clip. I'd like to watch a clip of Randall performing William Grant Still, the 3rd movement of his suite for violin and piano. Let's watch a portion of this. Technology is never my friend. Here we go, Randall. We'll have to play more. I hope folks will tune in and watch that. Before we go to Elena, Randall, just tell us a little bit about that piece. I love William Grant Still as a composer. Would you tell us just a little bit about that performance?
Absolutely, yeah. So that was from my debut with Young Concert Artists this past December. And I just have sort of rediscovered and fallen in love all over again with that piece. It's one of the few pieces of chamber music that I know of from Grant Still. And each of the 3 movements is based on a piece of visual art. The movement we just heard was gammon, as I've recently been corrected. I was telling people for the longest time it was gammon because it was just so fun. I was, that's sort of how I related to it. But the second movement is called Mother and Child. It's a beautifully sort of poetic sort of lament, elegy, ballad, that sort of direction. And the first movement is African Dancer, which if you listen to it, you'll sort of immediately get the relationship there. Grant Still was a trailblazer for African American composers, and one that I'm ashamed to admit I wish that I was made aware of a lot earlier. He was set a lot of firsts for African American composers. First to have a piece premiered by a major American orchestra, a piece broadcasted by a major American orchestra, to conduct his own piece with a major American orchestra. So knowing the history of Grant Still and his music, I was just so inspired to bring that piece to a wider audience. So
yes,
thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Please, yeah.
Thank you, and I encourage others, if you're interested in hearing more, idodjill.com does have Randall's music, as well as, of course, you can go to his website and hear more. We'll be back with you, Randall, in a moment, but I'd be remiss if I didn't introduce our amazing next international artist, the Elena Uriosste. It's such a joy, Elena, to have you here.
Thank you. Sorry.
Everyone, if you haven't heard of Elena, she's an award-winning musician, yogi, writer, and entrepreneur, as well as a lover of nature, food, animals, and connecting with other human beings. I just love that about your bio. As a violinist, she has given acclaimed performances as a soloist and a performer with major orchestras throughout the United States, including Philadelphia, Cleveland, Minnesota, New York, Los Angeles, you name it, as well as the London Philharmonic, Royal Liverpool Philharmonic, BBC Symphony. As an avid chamber musician, she is the founder and artistic director of Chamber Music by Sea, which is an annual festival on Maryland's Eastern Shore. I'm curious if that happened at all this year, and a graduate of both the Curtis Institute of Music and the Juilliard School of Music, and a Sphinx Competition and Medal of Excellence winner. I have to share this, Elena, that she is also been practicing yoga for over a decade, and is a co-founder of an amazing yoga program that combines music, movement, mindfulness, called Intermission, and much more. We could all use a bit of intermission right now. Elena, welcome.
Back there, we can
yes,
kind of chat if you'd like.
Thank you so much for being here. Would you tell us, I'm curious what year you won the Sphinx Concerto competition and the Medal of Excellence?
I first competed in Sphinx in 2003 as a junior division. So that was the first time I won the Sphinx. And then I competed again as a senior division participant in 2007. So those were the years I won the competition. And the Medal of Excellence, I believe, was 2012. I think it was whatever the first year was that
Sure.
happened.
Sure. And I'm curious, I mean, 2003 all the way to 12, in terms of your connection with them, how did Sphinx play a role in or impact your career? Because you've been at this a long time, so I'm curious about that.
Yeah, Sphinx has been a part of my life for over half my life, which is crazy to think about. And I think I have a very similar story to Randall. It completely shaped and, if not changed, my life. I had always dreamt of being a soloist. I was very enticed by the idea of standing in front of orchestras and playing in all these amazing halls around the world. And Sphinx basically made that happen through winning the competition. You get so many incredible performance opportunities with orchestras. They have so many very top-notch partnerships with American orchestras around the country. And so I really got the taste of the life that I had always dreamt of. But then also, as Randall mentioned, just what I hadn't expected to connect with so deeply was the community engagement, the outreach, the playing for children, and doing a lot of, I think a lot about direct helping as opposed to indirect helping. When you play a concert, you are oftentimes unknowingly affecting people emotionally. But getting to really interact on a one-to-one or, one musician to small classroom of children and see their reactions and observe them feeling the music in their bones so up close and personal is something that I didn't know that I dreamt about, but now, it is one of, if not the most fulfilling part of my career, I would
It
say.
is. I would agree with you. For me, engagement with the community and whatever situation that is, that can be prisons, young people who, I have to say, there's so much to talk about with you today, but I have been so moved by your COVID-19 project, the Urioste jukebox. Am I saying it right? Post jukebox with Tom Poster. I'm so in love with this. We'll watch a little bit, but you have to tell us, there's humor, there's depth, there's drama, versatility. You can hear Schumann in The Mood or Stairway to Heaven. What inspired you? Talk about this, because I'm just in love with it.
Jet lag was the primary inspiration, I would say. So Tom is my husband, by the way. Managed to get one of the last flights over to America before the borders were closed. I think it was March 16th. So he arrived just in the nick of time. He's British. I'm actually speaking to you from London right now. So we have a transatlantic relationship a lot of the time. So he managed to get over just in time. And in his rather jet-lagged state, he kind of jokingly suggested, like, what if we put out a music video every day for as long as lockdown lasts? Obviously having no idea how long that would be. Just, seeing our performance calendars wiped clean. We're basically unemployed and looking for a way to keep ourselves busy and entertained. So we had this idea to release a video every day. And then I thought maybe we could make it request-based. So we put out a call on our social media channels saying, what do you want us to play for you? We've got all the time in the world. And when people figured out that Tom is also just brilliant arranger, the requests got stranger and stranger. So it started like Mozart and Messiaen, and then we got Baby Shark and Britney Spears and Stairway to Heaven. And so we just went with it and had so much fun. And actually part of the joy of it was kind of showing people, hopefully we were able to show this, that music is music, and it doesn't matter if it was written by the Beatles or Beethoven.
Absolutely.
We'll craft a phrase with as much care, and we're not really into the genres or borders.
Well, I agree. And one of my favorites was Cole Porter's Begin to Begin. I actually first heard that song on Thomas Hampson's CD back in the 90s, his Night and Day CD. So it was a really cool connection to hear you play that and think about being on the show today. But I'd love to play this excerpt, an excerpt of your Mary Poppins Feed the Birds, which I absolutely think is beautiful. Listen to Elena and Tom. Oh man, I could play that on and on. And I love that they're singing. I love that you both are playing.
But can I say how mortified I am that you just played me singing in front of Thomas Hampson?
Trust me, I understand.
Sorry.
Such creativity. I just, it's truly that brought to me so much joy. And I hope people will check that out. Randall, I understand that you also have still been making an impact during COVID-19. Can you tell us how you've responded as well artistically to the COVID-19 era?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was. It took a lot of getting used to, and I think that's still happening, as I'm sure you both are feeling as well. I mean, I've done my fair share of sort of virtual collaborations with friends and colleagues and things like that. But I've also been taking part in some music programs virtually, both for myself and also for younger kids who are taking part in programs. Yeah, I just, in processing all of what's been happening, I have been trying my best to remind myself that there's still a lot to be grateful for. And with this new sort of virtual medium that we all have to sort of live in now, it actually does present opportunities to reach audiences that we may not have been able to without having to be forced to do this sort of virtual work. So, it's just, I feel lucky to still be able to connect with people. And in addition to just be able to take this time, however long we may have, to sort of sit back and just reflect on what it is that the world might need, what it is that we might be able to do better and change going forward, not only for ourselves, but of course for our art form as well. So,
absolutely. Tom, are you wanting to jump in here?
No, I was trying to sneak in the back.
Oh,
I need to learn the Zoom platform. I apologize. I don't mean it's a great program. Wonderful. You guys are absolutely sensational. Lovely singing voice. Well done, Elena.
Exactly.
Good for you all. I'm going to figure out. I was just trying to sneak in the back and write a chat or something, but never mind. You carry on. I'm gone.
Nope.
Bye-bye.
You're always welcome. Interesting enough, hearing about responding to the COVID-19 era, Sphinx, two of their ensembles, Exigence Vocal Ensemble and Sphinx Virtuosi, are both responding to this time as well. Each ensemble will be offering new virtual concert presenting series that'll include concert packages with curated panel discussion and educational activities. For those of you who don't know, Exigence Vocal Ensemble is a professional vocal ensemble inspired by the mission of Sphinx that highlights the artistry within the Black and Latinx communities. This ensemble is composed of vocal artists, solo performers, educators, conductors, composers that all celebrate the power of inclusive excellence, community, and expression through vocal music. We're going to watch a clip of Exigence now performing The Caged Bird Sings for Freedom, a piece by Joelle Thompson. It's a powerful work by Maya Angelou with her text. This is Exigence. Well, that's Elena, but as soon as I can get out of this. Technology, I'm running my own tech, it's not always the easiest. Here's Exigence.
A free bird leaps on the back of the wind and floats downstream till the current ends, and dips his wing in orange sun rays and dares to claim the sky. But a bird that stalks down a narrow cage can seldom see through bars of rage. Her wings are clipped, her feet are tied, so she opens her throat to sing. The caged bird sings with a fearful trill of things unknown but longed for still. Her tune is heard on a distant hill, for the caged bird sings for freedom.
Dips his wing in orange sun rays.
I hope people will listen to that recording more. I love this ensemble. I wish we had more time to play longer excerpts, but just wanted to give you a taste. I get emotional every time I see people of color sing that powerful text by Maya Angelou. You know, and I want both of you to unmute yourselves. I want to get into a bit broader discussion now, because I think it's very important for us as people of color to talk about the diversity in the arts. And I still am baffled, actually, when I go to concerts and still see so many classical music concerts where there's still so few brown and Black faces on the stage. I'd love to hear you both just talk about your thoughts and perspectives about diversity in classical music, and how can we broaden this experience so that 10 years from now, we're still not seeing the same faces and hearing the same repertoire. I'd love to hear you just talk about this, your perspective on that.
You want to go first, Randall?
Go ahead, please.
I mean, it's such a nuanced conversation, and there are so many versions of it being had at the moment.
Mhm.
This is very personal, but I actually feel quite optimistic, or I have made the choice to be positive and optimistic about it all. Because for me personally, I feel like anger or getting caught in the trap of, well, why isn't it different, tends to be fairly destructive for both my mood and my, it just doesn't really help anything as far as I'm concerned. And I would say that some of my greatest role models in classical music, role models of color, who I know through Sphinx or otherwise, they're all like relentlessly positive people. And rather than despairing, they put their frustration, they channel everything into making stuff happen. So that's definitely my approach to this whole subject, rather than just, being mad and yelling and writing.
Sure. I was listening to someone sent me a clip. Actually, Roger Cox sent me a clip of, I think it was Leontine Price, talking about sort of her statements were sort of similar to yours. There's such a fine balance between what may come across as whining versus also speaking about a lack of opportunity. Clearly, we know there's definitely a need for more exposure, but I think we do have to focus. I like the way you talk about channeling, the way we channel it in that perspective. Randall, I'd love to hear from you, your thoughts about that.
Absolutely. Really beautifully said, Elena. I would have to echo, everything that you said. I think staying positive, optimistic, and if possible, hopeful, are all really positive and helpful things for me, just for my sort of sanity. But, I've been involved in a number of conversations, panel conversations, of course, virtually, on this subject with different orchestras and different presenting organizations and whatnot. And I have seen to me, a very positive response from them. Unfortunately, we have to put ourselves as people of color in the position of sort of testifying in a way in regards to some experiences of the past that may have caused a lot of us great trauma. But in doing so, I do think that with the combination of Black Lives Matter and the resurgence of that and COVID, I think that people are in a place now where they want to listen, I think. And that's the sense that I've got. And for me, of course, as you said right after we watched the clip of Exigence, it's hard to explain, and I imagine it's hard for people who don't look like us to understand just how inspiring it is to see people who look like us on the stage. Even as violinists who already have sort of gone down the path of performing career, it has the same effect, And so for me, a lot of my focus and a lot of the conversations that I've been having around this issue is imagine what a 6 or a 7 or an 8-year-old would feel seeing that, hearing that, experiencing that, And so that's where a lot of my focus is going to, trying to have conversations that inspire change in how people, organizations, and institutions connect with the young people in their community, because that is who will represent their community going forward, and that is, that will be who we look to for not only for business from the perspective of an organization or an orchestra, but just on the general scale, they are the future, and so I as I'm only 24, I know, but I'm already sort of looking at the sort of next generation, so to speak. So that's where a lot of my focus has lied recently.
Well, and that goes naturally to my other question. What advice would you have for upcoming performers of color and how they can sort of chart their path and be heard? You sort of alluded to that already. Anything you would add to that if you're speaking to this next generation?
Oh man, just keep doing what you're doing. As long as you have found something that you love and are happy to dedicate your time and energy to, I think that you will be able to find happiness and joy in doing that. I would say for budding young classical musicians or anyone in general, don't be shy about reaching out. Use your as I heard it framed recently. Tap into your village, right? Everyone has their sort of village of support, right, underneath, whether it's family, friends, mentors, colleagues, and reach out to them and find out how it is that you can, what it is that you can do to further your goals, or what it is that they can do to support your goals. I certainly didn't get to where I am by myself. I got there with a lot of love and support and luck. And don't be afraid to use your village, use your network. Absolutely.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Elena, would you add anything?
No, you like speak so beautifully about this, Randall.
He does.
I guess I come at most things in my life, and I think this is probably a function of the personalities of my own parents, with the idea that above all should be a sense of excellence, and not at the expense, of course, of kindness and compassion and humor and all of these things that are so important. But I was raised like, not even, it sounds really stupid, but like not realizing that I was at a disadvantage, so to speak, being of color, female, not having musical parents. I was raised an only child. Neither of my parents were in any way musical. In fact, my dad often says that his only exposure to classical music before me was watching Looney Tunes. And I think a lot of people of my generation and their parents' generation might have a similar story. So in that way, I actually feel incredibly hopeful. That my dad in his 60s went from knowing nothing about classical music to having a brown-skinned daughter who plays on the world stages. And I think he would certainly say that that's the sign of progress and of changing times. But what was instilled in me was that, you can have these dreams, and I think my parents found it quite bizarre that I wanted to play the violin, especially when it got to a point where I wanted to play it professionally. But they just always said, like, fine, you have to work really hard.
Yes.
And, I think that can get a bit toxic in any line of work, valuing hard work and discipline at the expense of everything else. I think you have to balance this with leaning on your community, asking for help, being kind to yourself, resting, taking care of your body. But yeah, I was just raised to believe that I don't know. I never like kind of stewed in my circumstances.
Sure.
So I get slightly frustrated at that kind of mentality. That being said, I understand that I am very privileged to have had very supportive parents, and I understand that not everyone has a community or a family situation like that, or access to an instrument. It's so important. So I would just encourage a sense of balance. Just one quick anecdote, actually.
Sure.
Like I said, I didn't grow up like realizing that I was a Hispanic violinist. It just didn't occur to me, even though, I grew up in a very diverse area, but there were very few fellow Latin people. But the first time I walked out to play in front of the Sphinx Symphony, it was at that point, it was like I had uncovered a piece of myself that I didn't know I was missing. And I found it unbelievably moving and meaningful, and that I keep that feeling with me, and it's sort of what drives me in my career and in my life as an ambassador for classical music.
Sure.
thinking that, you know, I didn't have female Hispanic role models growing up, particularly not violinists. I mean, the closest I got was like Mariah Carey, who my dad suggested I listen to because he'd heard about this Latino. Like, what better role model to have though? Like, 4-octave range. But you know, if I can be that for someone else, not that I could be Mariah Carey, but if I could be
you are in your own way, Mariah Carey.
if I could be some sort of visible role model, I think that's really important. But I do think we have to balance expectation with gratitude. We have to keep striving so that classical music and any art form a little bit more accurately represents the society which it serves.
Sure.
I think we should also pause every now and then and just acknowledge that we have come a long way. And, you know, former Looney Tunes watchers who now can like speak quite eloquently about Beethoven. So that's cool.
Absolutely. And I think the organizations like the Sphinx Organization and many others, the Color of Music, and we think of what's happening in the UK with the Chineke Orchestra, I think that's the name of them. You know, these organizations providing a great role models and examples of people of color who have absolutely first-rate talent and skill, but also bring about new repertoire. I think the more we can bring about voices that are not heard to the stage, but regardless of all of that, the standard must be there, right? You have to bring your best self. I think sometimes, from my perspective, and I would say this to any emerging young person of color, is don't feel as if you have to leave a part of yourself. Sometimes, I know sometimes people feel like in order for them to be successful here, I have to avoid or negate this part of myself. And hopefully our world in classical music is more open in that way, that we can bring all of that in addition to the great repertoire of Brahms and Bach, and you name it. Well, we've reached the end of our time today, folks. I want to encourage each of you to check out the work of these amazing artists, the Sphinx Organization, Exigence Vocal Ensemble, and this new digital platform, Idadjo, the ultimate classical music streaming app where you can find amazing recordings of many amazing artists, including my two guests today. Thank you, Thomas Hampson and the Hampson Foundation, and thank you, everyone, for watching. I encourage you to tune in next week at the same time for more movers and shapers in classical music, where we will focus on part 1 of a 2-part series of Black composers making an impact today, featuring Damon Jeter, Joel Thompson, and the amazing English baritone and composer Roderick Williams. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Have a good day.